Hello. In this video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about web accessibility and your responsibilities as a site owner using Cascade to manage a University of Montana website. Web accessibility is the practice of making any website and the information and the assets on that site readily and easily available to any visitor, regardless of whether they may have a hearing or a visual impairment. I've put together an accessibility guide on the Cascade support site. You can find it at umt.edu/Cascade support/accessibility. I've got quite a few sort of tips and tricks here on how to make your website accessible and also lay out the responsibilities and the reasoning why websites should be made accessible. It's worth pointing out in this video that not only is it a good idea to make your site accessible for your site visitors just so that everyone can use your site, it's actually a legal requirement for pages published by the university to comply with accessibility standards. You can see our policy on accessible web content here if you just click on this link, UM's policy on accessible web content on the accessibility page for more information. The first thing we'll look at is video accessibility. This one's pretty straightforward and easy to accomplish. Basically, if you're going to embed a video on your website, it needs to be captioned. And if the video isn't already captioned, all you need to do is send it to Accessible Technology Services and they will caption it for you. So there is a link here under options. So this is still on the accessibility /video page in the accessibility guide. Just click on this link here, the Learn More and Complete the Captioning Request form. That will take you to this page with a bit more information, and to get to the form, just click Request Service button and then fill out this form. They have a turnaround time of, I think it's usually like 5 to 7 days, they say, but I've never had one take more than just a few days, so it's a very quick service that they provide. The next thing we'll look at are links and link text. So we'll go to that section on the accessibility guide, links and link text. And the most important thing here is the link text. So links are obviously just links to other pages or assets on your website or another website. And the link text needs to be self-describing. So it needs to describe, if someone was just reading the link text, the text that's being linked, they have to know where that link is going to take them. So the classic bad link text is click here. So I've got an example, click here to visit University of Montana. Don't do that. If someone were using a screen reader and they were just scanning a page for links, all they would see was click here, click here, click here, click here. It makes no sense. So it needs to describe where they're going to go. So instead, good link text example is visit the University of Montana website to learn more. So the link text here is University of Montana website. So anyone would be able to know exactly where that was going to take them the second they clicked on that link. The next thing we're going to look at are images and how to make those accessible. So we'll go to the images and alternative text section of the accessibility guide. And the main thing about images is that they need something that's called alt text. This is just something that gets added to the markup that will describe the image to someone who is maybe using a screen reader. So we have some examples here of alt text on the guide. And I started off with bad alt text and gone to really good alt text. So bad alt text, say this is the image, this is Monty dunking a basketball at a game. Bad alt text would be just say Monty-image. It doesn't really describe what's going on. Better, if you said something like Monty the bear, people would know, okay, Monty the bear, he's probably the mascot. But a fully descriptive alt text would be something like Monty the mascot acrobatically dunking a basketball. So that gives you a really good idea of what's going on in that image. And there are a couple of ways of adding alt text. If you're we've got it here in the guide here. I'm going to show you a live example. So I'm going to go over to this demo site that everyone should have access to, and I'm going to edit this page. And if you're just adding an image, say to a row, I'm going to go here and just use the WYSIWYG editor. Click on image. I'm just going to grab some image file, which is, let me find something good here. Actually, let's do one at Glacier National Park, shall we? Yep, great. So if you're just using the WYSIWYG editor, you get this window pop up, and it's called the image description. So I would just type in something like mountains and stream in Glacier National Park, and then just click OK. There is a checkbox here you can see where it says decorative. This is a decorative image, no description needed. You will almost never check that. Very rarely does anyone have a useful decorative image for a website. So good rule of thumb is just always assume you're going to add alt text to an image. So I'll click OK, and here's our image of Glacier. Yep, mountain and streams in Glacier National Park. Okay, and another way of doing this, I'm just going to submit this so this is done. Another way that this you will add alt text, say, is if you're adding a block. So let's add a featured image content block, right? So here it's not called image description, it's actually called alt text. It'd be exact same thing. You would just say, you know, stream and mountain in Glacier National Park. And then I would link the image and then add in all the other information that is needed for this block. I won't submit that one. So basically, when you're doing alt text, just think, okay, if someone just can't see the image, what do they need to know about the image that helps them make sense of like why the image is is on that particular web page, you know, especially if it's informative. And if you are using, you shouldn't do this, but say if there's text on an image that needs to be part of the alt text. In general, we really discourage having text-based images where the text is just part of the image, because a screen reader can't read that text, and you can technically add it to the alt text, but it's just not a good practice. And the last thing I'll say about images is avoid using images as links. So maybe you have like a JPEG or something of a button that you really like, and you want that to link to something else. Don't do that. Just use the built-in Cascade button block to create a button. And similarly, don't use images as links. Use link text or a button or one of the other blocks to link to other pages or assets. The reason for that is that it can be difficult for someone using a screen reader to understand that the image itself is a link that should be clicked on. I'm going to look at two more areas of accessibility here before I finish this video. The next thing we're going to look at is headings. So I go to page titles and headings section, accessibility. Now, headings are used to organize content on your page, and they need to be used sort of in sequence. So headings go from heading 1 to heading 6, or H1 to H6. And usually the page title is the H1 that comes automatically with the name of your page. Any subheading should be an H2, which will look like this. And then if there's a subheading to that, H3 all the way down to H6. Generally, you're not going to go past H3 really on a normal web page on the university. If you're getting down to heading level 5 and 6, think about splitting up your content across multiple pages, because it's going to be hard to navigate with that many subheadings. An exception to that would be something like a data-heavy page on a science site, something like that. But normal for most pages in the university, you're not going to go to anywhere past H3. H4 would kind of be a rare thing. And I'm going to just take a look at one page and show you something kind of not to do. And I'm not picking on Campus Rec here, our friends over at the Grizzly Pool and Campus Rec, but I was checking the times for the pool the other day, and I noticed something here. So you can see that they do have an H1, right? Grizzly Pool is an H1, but then I think this is an H4, and then this link text is an H4, and then this is an H3, and then all of this text is H4. So I think the reason they've done this is for display purposes. They just liked the maroon color and they like the size of the text. So that's a big no-no with accessibility. Don't do that. Someone using an assisted device might be scanning a page and then have all these headings that are out of order and don't seem to make any sense. For instance, like this is sorry, this keeps doing this. Paragraph text right here, the novel coronavirus has proven to be exceptionally contagious. That's a paragraph. That's not a heading. And this is a heading, but there's no heading 2 above it. This H3 is a heading. So I'm going to go in and just fix this really quick, and I'll show you how to do that. So I'll go into Edit, and we'll do full screen, and I'm going to discard my changes because I was just looking at that. So get rid of these toast here, and I will go down to, okay, so right here, you can see that's an H4, H3, and H4. But really, there should just be paragraph, maybe an H2, I guess, here, and then another paragraph. So I'll go and just look at the source code so you can see that. And don't worry if you're not familiar with HTML, not a problem. You don't need to work with the HTML to fix this. I'll show you both ways. But for instance, so this link text is this right here, this H4. That really is just a paragraph text. And I'm going to go change that right now, and I'll show you what that looks like. So I click OK, and that's back to paragraph text. And this, if it is a heading, should be an H2 because there is no other H2 on there. There's just the H1. So the way to do that is you just put your cursor on the line. If you don't want to do this through the source code, through the HTML, select Formats, Headings, and then Heading 2. And that will change that automatically. And I'm going to do the same thing here. So put my cursor into the paragraph text. I do Format, Block, and then Paragraph. And I'm going to do the same thing here, Formats, Block, Paragraph. Now this makes much more sense. These are paragraphs. This is an H2. It's a bit long for a heading 2. I honestly myself wouldn't do that, but I'm just going to leave that because I think we've fixed it to a good enough point now. I'm going to submit this, and I'll reach out to them and let them know that I've altered their page. And so this is what it looks like. So this is actually better. All that maroon text isn't great anyway for readability as paragraph text. This black text is much better. And someone using an assistive device would understand what all this meant and have a much easier time navigating that. And the last thing I'm going to cover really quickly is documents. This one's very simple. So if you're uploading like a PDF or a Word document, PowerPoint, whatever, it must be accessible. And I'm not really the expert on that. I do know some things about it, but the experts are Accessible Technology Services on campus. So get in touch with them. There's a link right here. So if you go to the documents page on the Cascade support site, /accessibility/documents, you'll find this link to Accessible Technology Services. Click on that. You'll be taken to their site and creating accessible documents. They have some explanations here, but also I find it very useful just to get in touch with them if you have any questions, and they will consult with you on making sure your Word document or your PDF is accessible. Okay, thanks for making it all the way to the end of this video. I hope that was helpful, and if you have any questions, just please send us an email at webhelp@mso.umt.edu or stop by our office hours. Thank you.